They texted me while I was pouring the wine. Just 6 words, no apology, no explanation. Just a sentence that knocked the air out of my lungs louder than any fight ever had. You're not our priority right now. It was my birthday. I had reserved the table, confirmed the head count, even picked a spot near the window so Mom could watch the boats go by. She always loved that. And still, they didn't show. What they did do, though, was send a gift. Wrapped in a ribbon I'd tied last Christmas. A scarf I had bought with the last $80 in my checking account, returned to me like some regifted afterthought. So I left them a note. Nothing dramatic. Just 5 quiet words they weren't expecting. And the next morning, 42 missed calls. Because the house they lived in, the one with the gray shutters and my name on the deed. Well, it turns out silence isn't the only thing I'm done paying for. I booked the table myself. 6 seats, white linen, soft lighting, a quiet corner overlooking the river walk. It wasn't fancy, but it felt intentional, like I mattered enough to plan something worth showing up for. I even wore the navy dress Mom liked, the one she once called simple but respectable. My heels pinched, but I figured birthdays were worth the ache. By 6:09, I'd already checked my phone 3 times. By 6:30, I'd lied to the waiter. They're probably just stuck in traffic. At 6:47, the message came. You're not our priority right now. Enjoy your dinner. That was it. No happy birthday. No apology. Just 13 words delivered with surgical detachment. I stared at the screen until the letters stopped blurring. This wasn't forgetfulness. It wasn't a mix-up. It was a choice. The waiter returned this time with a box wrapped in minimalist gold paper and a note card tucked beneath the ribbon. Someone dropped this off earlier today, he said. From your family. I smiled at him like a stranger. The kind of smile you use when you don't want people asking questions. I opened the box slowly. Inside was a pale blue silk scarf. I recognized it immediately. I had bought it for Mom last Christmas, same brand, same tiny snag near the edge, where she'd caught it on her ring. And the card, it wasn't new. They'd just written over it. Under the fresh ink, faint but unmistakable, was my own handwriting. Love you always, Mom. I set the scarf down, carefully folded the card back in, and placed the box beside the untouched breadbasket. I didn't cry. I didn't call. I took a slow sip of wine, then pulled a sticky note from my purse, meant for groceries, not grief. I wrote 5 words. That's all it took. I tucked the note under my plate with a $20 bill, stood up, and walked out without looking back. By the time I reached my apartment, the city had gone quiet. The chair across from mine stayed empty. The wine sat unfinished, and the note I left behind, thank you. No more seats. What do you do when the people you love most don't even try to hide that you're not invited? I placed the scarf on the kitchen counter like it might say something different under better lighting. It didn't. Same soft blue silk. Same loose thread near the hem. Same stitching I had noticed when I bought it because Mom always said she loved elegant, not loud. I had spent 2 days comparing brands, reading reviews, finding one I could afford that still felt like care. She wore it once, Christmas brunch, then never again. Now it was back in my hands, recycled, rewrapped, returned like some kind of quiet insult, wrapped in gold paper and denial. The card still sat inside. Happy birthday from all of us. Underneath that ink, barely visible but impossible to ignore, love you always, Mom. My own handwriting. They hadn't even bothered to use a new card, just covered my message with theirs, like affection could be edited. It was the kind of thoughtlessness that doesn't scream, it shrugs. I didn't sleep that night. I lay still, eyes wide in the dark, listening to the city shift and hum outside my window. I kept thinking maybe it wasn't on purpose. Maybe they just forgot. But forgetting takes effort when you're the one who books the table, sends reminders, pays for the meal. This wasn't forgetfulness. It was convenience. I was convenient. Until I wasn't. By morning, the scarf was folded neatly and tucked inside a drawer I didn't open often. I wasn't going to wear it, but I also wasn't ready to throw it away. I needed the evidence. Because there's a specific kind of heartbreak that happens when the people you give the most to offer back what you already gave them, acting like it's new. It doesn't feel like cruelty. It feels like erasure. I made coffee I didn't want, scrolled through texts I didn't answer, and stared at the last message on my screen. "You're not our priority." It echoed louder in the morning light. I wondered briefly if they even remembered buying Curtis that new watch 2 weeks ago, using the rent money Evan begged me to wire just until Friday. I already knew the answer. If your love becomes disposable, how long until you feel the same way about them? I opened my banking app. It wasn't revenge, it was curiosity. There it was. A $1 $200 transfer to Evan, labeled April rent. Sent last Tuesday, the same day Mom texted that I wasn't their priority. I scrolled back. $350 gas bill for the house, $600 emergency dentist for Zanaya's son, $2,800 Curtis's car loan bridge payment last summer, $5,000 mortgage coverage during the winter when Evelyn said the heat might get cut off. No one ever paid me back. They barely said thank you. But I kept giving because that's what you do when you love someone, right? You give. Even when it stings. Even when they spend the emergency rent money on a new watch, the same one Curtis showed off in an Instagram post hours after skipping my birthday. His caption, "Work hard, reward harder." I laughed, quietly, bitterly. Curtis hadn't worked in nearly a year. They hadn't just left me off the guest list. They funded his celebration with my kindness. My stomach turned. I pulled open a spreadsheet I hadn't touched since grad school. Column A, date. Column B, amount. Column C, who. Column D, why. I called the file support unreciprocated.xlsx. Line by line, I filled it in. Grocery runs, utility bills, holiday decorations, school fees, forgotten birthdays, unreturned favors, apologies never given, invitations never extended. It wasn't just money, it was labor, time, presence, silence. The things I gave freely they took without flinching, and what they gave me in return, a scarf I'd already paid for. I wasn't crying, not anymore. I wasn't angry either, not in the way that makes you yell. This was the kind of anger that sharpens, not explodes. The kind that makes you start collecting receipts, not for revenge, but for recognition. For proof. Because when people rewrite the narrative, you'd better have a copy of the original. When generosity becomes expectation, is silence the same as consent? I just need you to check something for me. I told Naomi over coffee the next morning. She didn't ask questions, just opened her laptop. I gave her the property ID and waited as she navigated through the county record site, like she'd done this 1,000 times. She squinted at the screen. Then her fingers stopped moving. "That's odd," she murmured. I leaned in. "What your name? It's not here." I blinked. "What do you mean?" "I mean it's been removed. Refiled deed 4 weeks ago. Velma and Curtis listed as co-owners now. No mention of you. But I've been on that deed since Dad passed." She clicked to open the document. My heart pounded. There it was. A revised ownership file. No signature line for me. No email confirmation. Just a clean, silent erasure. She clicked into the submission log. Submitted in person. Notarized. Processed. I couldn't breathe. Naomi kept her voice steady. "Want me to check for a signature?" I nodded. She scrolled, paused. It says, Lauren E. Myers, no ID on file. Just that. I stared at the screen. I never signed that. Never even saw it. It was Mom. I knew it before I said it aloud. Her handwriting, her persistence, her ability to look someone in the eye while quietly rearranging the world beneath their feet. She forged it, I said flatly. Naomi didn't flinch. "That's fraud. You need to take this seriously." I nodded, but the weight didn't land right away. Because betrayal in words is one thing, but betrayal on paper, on legal paper, hits different. It's not emotional, it's intentional, it's permanent. If you've been erased on paper, does that mean you were never real to them? The knock came right before sunset. 3 sharp raps, not hesitant, not apologetic. I opened the door already knowing who it was. Velma stood there, her posture rigid, a pastel gift bag, dangling from her wrist like it weighed more than it should. The kind you pick up at a pharmacy 5 minutes before arriving somewhere you forgot you were supposed to care about. Thought we could talk, she said. Like adults, I didn't invite her in. She walked past me anyway. Of course she did. That's always been Velma, setting rules she never intended to follow herself. She perched on the edge of my couch like it might stain her. I know how things looked. She started smoothing her hands on her jeans. But we honestly thought maybe you needed some space. I stared at her. After what happened at dinner, she blinked like she hadn't expected me to speak. I just think there were misunderstandings. And well, you're not always the easiest person to what I cut in, to forget, to erase. Her mouth tightened, and then it came, the classic family refrain. You're just so sensitive. There it was. The phrase that's been used to gaslight women into silence for generations. The one that translates to your pain makes me uncomfortable, so it must be your fault. But I didn't flinch. I reached into the drawer by the kitchen and pulled out the folder I had prepared. Not out of hope, out of preparation. I handed her a single sheet of ledger. 5 years of contributions, rent, utilities, grocery runs, holiday costs, bailouts, quiet sacrifices with timestamps and totals. She scanned the page. Her fingers twitched, tightening ever so slightly around the paper. This, I said, is who you've been talking about behind my back. She didn't deny it. She didn't apologize. She just said, you'll regret this when you're alone. I walked her to the door. Didn't yell, didn't beg. I locked it behind her, leaned my head against the wood and whispered, I've already been alone. This time, it's by choice. What happens when you stop asking for a seat and start presenting the bill? I hadn't seen his name on my phone in almost 3 years. Jonah Ellis. The last time we spoke, I told him I couldn't be in a relationship when I was too busy holding my family together. He didn't fight it, just said, when you're ready to stop bleeding for people who don't even notice your cut, call me. I never did. But there he was now, standing at my door with 2 paper cups of hot cider and that same quiet steadiness in his eyes. I heard he said softly, through Naomi. I let him in. We didn't talk about Mom or Curtis or the forged signature, not right away. We sat on the couch, the air filled with cinnamon and silence, lit by the low glow of a single table lamp and the flickering candle I hadn't blown out since Velma left. You always knew, didn't you? I asked. He nodded, that you were holding everyone else up so hard you forgot how to stand for yourself. Yeah, I thought that made me strong. It made you exhausted. I stared at him. He hadn't changed much. Still wore that worn-in coat with the leather collar. Still listened with his whole face. I'm not who I was, I said. I hope not, he replied. You deserved better than who you had to be. We didn't kiss. This wasn't about romance. It was about recognition. About someone seeing the cracks and calling them beautiful instead of broken. As he left, he turned and added, if you ever decide to build something for yourself, something that's only yours, I'll invest. Emotionally or otherwise. He smiled. Just don't pay for it with silence again. What if the only person who saw your worth was the one you pushed away to save someone else? I started with the grocery delivery. The app still had Velma's address listed as the primary drop-off location. I'd been paying for weekly crates of organic snacks she once said helped her digest emotions. I canceled the subscription with 2 taps. Next was the streaming service. Logged out of 5 devices, changed the password. Then came the shared family Spotify account, my name still listed as the plan manager, while Evan blasted playlists called Grind Time from a couch he didn't pay for. I shut that down too. One by one, I cut cords no one had asked me to create, but everyone had clung to. And the more I untangled myself, the quieter everything felt. I thought the silence would scare me. It didn't. Naomi filed the fraud complaint that afternoon. The forged deed, the missing consent, the lack of ID verification. All of it submitted with a time-stamped affidavit. She looked up from her laptop and said, "We have a strong case, but be ready, they're going to come after you emotionally first." I was ready. The phone buzzed. A group chat notification, family emergency, 8:00 p.m. call tonight. Then another message from Curtis, no drama this time. Be civil. I stared at the screen, then muted the thread. I didn't need to defend my decisions anymore. I didn't owe explanations for refusing to fund people who frame their entitlement as tradition. The last thing I did was turn off auto pay on the joint mortgage. There was no alert, no email confirmation. Just a quiet halt like a faucet finally turned off after years of leaking. Can you free yourself without becoming the villain in their story? I wasn't sure. But I was finally learning to stop being the unpaid hero in theirs. The group chat was renamed again. It used to be Mortgage Emergency, then Jennings Strong, and now somehow Family First. The emoji said it all. I hadn't opened it in days, but the notifications still stacked up like dust on a windowsill. Messages from Mom, from Curtis, even Evan, who hadn't typed a full sentence to me in months. All with the same tone, polite panic. Let's talk. We're still family. You've made your point. Now come back. I didn't reply. Instead, I got a message from someone I didn't expect, Zanaya Evans' girlfriend. Just one line. They're spiraling without you. Not worried about you. Not they feel terrible. Just they're panicking now that the support's gone. It wasn't guilt they missed. It was access. I reread her message and smiled, not out of satisfaction but recognition. If your presence was only valued for your wallet, what happens when you close the tab? I didn't text back, didn't clarify, didn't confront. I screenshotted the thread, filed it under a folder Naomi had labeled Intent versus Impact, and muted the chat again. No rage, no monologue, just peace. The kind you only find when you stop arguing for a seat at a table where no one wants you fed, only served. I started with the hallway. The photo wall had always been Velma's pride Christmas mornings, graduation smiles, Curtis holding trophies he never earned, Evan grinning behind birthday cakes I bought. I'd taken half of those photos. I wasn't in most of them. They framed those memories like proof of unity. To me, they were exhibits of omission. One by one, I pulled them down. The frames clicked softly as they stacked in the donation box. I didn't break them. I didn't burn anything. Just let them go. Until I reached the last frame. It was smaller, off-center, faded at the corners. Me and Dad. Summer light pouring over the porch. He's in that old flannel shirt with sleeves too long. I'm barefoot, mid-laugh, head thrown back, his hand on my shoulder. No one else is in the shot. No decorations, no perfection, just joy. I stood there a while, holding the frame with both hands like it might vanish. Then I opened my bedroom closet, reached behind the coats, and gently taped the photo inside the door, facing out. Hidden, but safe. The only piece of my family that felt like it ever belonged to me. Next, I took a sticky note and wrote what I wish he'd been able to say that night. Mom forged my name. You raised me strong, not silent. I pressed it beside the photo and smoothed the corners flat. Outside, the street was quiet. The kind of quiet that feels earned. I didn't mourn the missing pictures. Didn't feel hollow. What memories do you keep when the people in them no longer belong to you? The answer, I realized, is only the ones where you feel seen. The apartment was still. No buzz from my phone, no alerts, no crises. Just the steady hum of a city that no longer owned me. I poured a cup of coffee I actually wanted. Bold roast, 2 scoops, exactly how I liked it, not how anyone else took theirs. I sat down at my desk, opened my laptop, and clicked on the file I'd created 2 weeks ago, but hadn't dared touch until now. Title: What I Owe Myself. Chapter 1. The cursor blinked, waiting. No manifesto, no speech, just space mine. I typed slowly, carefully. Not to convince anyone, not to make a point, but because I finally could. Outside, the light shifted through the blinds in quiet stripes. I thought about the scarf, the table for 6, the note I left beneath the plate. I thought about the woman I'd been for so long, the fixer, the silent donor, the unacknowledged guest. She wasn't weak, but she was done. I walked to the closet and opened the door. The photo of Dad greeted me. My note still beside it. You raised me strong, not silent. I smiled, placed my hand over it for a beat, then turned back to my desk. My phone lit up on the side table. Curtis, the bank just called. The payment's overdue. You knew this would happen. I forwarded the message to Naomi with one subject line: do not engage. Then I powered the phone off. I looked around my home, my space. Every corner held decisions I had made for no one else's comfort but mine. A soft exhale escaped my lips. Not sadness, not defiance, just peace. What would you write if the only voice you answered to was finally your own? For me, the answer was simple. I'd write the truth, and I'd start with this: I was worth showing up for, even if I was the only one who ever did. The end.